everyone.
Good morning, Joe.
All right. We've got and we'll get started in just a moment. So I know he's out. All right, while we're waiting for just a couple more people, are there any agenda updates or additional agenda items we want to discuss today? Next week, we're going to do a bunch of reviews of proposals that have come in and pull requests. So next week we'll have an agenda of reviews plus life cycle. Unless Lee, you think you can do a reasonable job today for life cycle, which would be excellent if you could.
I mean, I can give a brief update, but
yeah. All right. Let's do that. Again, sort of at the one slide level is fine. It's 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes.
Okay. Even if can I just create a slide on the fly then?
Yeah. Create a. I'll put. You'll go last. There. We'll do. We'll do a cyclic rotation and rotate the last bit to the first bit, and you'll be all set. All right, let's see. So if I missed anyone on the attendance, yes, I did. Let's see. Dong Wei, Song Ming, or Richard. Okay. All right, so we have enough to get started. All right. Any agenda updates? And we'll probably put this lab execution review next week as opposed to this week, Marcia. If it depends on the time we have. Okay, so you'll just be last priority this week and first priority next week. And then I think we have a new proposal, and then we have the lab software external library maintenance review that was written up in the mailing list that we'll review as well. Okay, that said, let's get started with Alad's not on. So, Oren, do you know what an Alad status is? Or did I miss something in chat?
I don't know what Elad's status is. I don't work with the use case working group.
No. Sorry, that was for Oren from NVIDIA.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Great. All right, I'll have a separate, I guess maybe this one will have to defer. I'll have a separate talk with Alad. All right, POC Dev platform. So do you want to share?
Sure, no problem. Oh, I can't share until you share. It's not sharing.
I didn't stop sharing. All right, go ahead.
Wait for a moment. Good morning or good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. I just captured a general summary of what's going on in the Dev POC working group. Essentially, we're working to essentially what we're generally doing is covering progress and challenges to creating a unified platform for developing and testing our applications. We've built out all of our tasks in GitHub that we need to implement to get the lab up and running, accumulating hardware, configuring it, aligning configuration expectations, etc. We spend a lot of time right now working on hardware or having hardware conversations. We're also identifying areas of improvement, things we want to do for documentation, adding, asking or adding for different features from use case groups, etc., and resolving our own internal issues. Really, we're defined on testing out software that's built by OPI and seeing how that functions in different use cases that have been provided to us. So status wise, lab is ready for GitHub Runner integration, and one GitHub Runner should be up and running by the end of the year. We've completed about 80% of the tasks and deliverables and expect to finish the remaining 20% by the end of the year. Outstanding issues that need to review, we need to create private GitHub private repos or define whether we're doing the repos versus using storage in the lab to manage that space. And then we need to vet and approve our groups for the private lab with folks. We have sort of a tier 1 and a tier 2 group that have been built out. But again, that list sort of needs to be approved, I think, by this group.
It does. Yeah, it does need to be approved by this group. That's one of the things that'll be on the agenda to review next week for you and Merchant and I guess Venkat. So we're going to review those lists and approve next week. You know, they're in the Slack chat, which is an unstable place for them to be, but so we need a markdown pull request with that same information that we can then say that, you know, that is the plan. So and it can go in our, you know, we have that general repo that has, you know, policies and processes documents in it, should go in there.
Okay. And then as far as plans are concerned, we'd like to provide a demo of the lab by mid-January, but we need to kind of stay on top of our own progress depending on vendor delivery, etc. We also want to see our own, we want to be able to create proof of concept demos to provide at conferences. We're hoping to have something available for MWC in February or OCP in April, both of which are overseas, and I don't know who are overseas for the US and for anybody attending from APAC, but hoping to be able to have something for anybody who's going to those conferences, like I said, either Mobile World Congress or OCP or both as pending next targets. And then we have a few items that have been brought to TSC's attention. The public versus private IP, we need to make sure we aren't connected to a production lab. We need to find out exactly how we've defined our IPs. And then we've defined 3 proof of concepts to move forward with. We want to do IPsec with Mount Evans once we get that hardware in-house, EPVN with VXLAN, and then the Nginx proxy on DPUs. In general, outstanding issues from our status section will be resolved. Those are our plans in general. And we also want to document lessons learned and best practices from the project and share them with the community, which, to be fair, Mersh's already done. He sent out content in from GitHub that is his documenting, I believe not process, but lab setup. So if folks have an opportunity to review that, we've sent it out in I think 3 or 4 different Slack channels. I don't know if folks have taken a look and seen that, but if you have an opportunity to review that content and provide any updates, we'd appreciate it. So that's the general summary from the POC, the POC working group. Does anyone have questions or comments? And is there anything here that you didn't see that you anticipated seeing?
I'll let everyone else go, and then I have several.
What's the EPVN demo, Laura? Or is that supposed to be VPN?
Mersha?
That's just a typo.
Probably.
It's EVPN.
Okay.
It is EPVN or it's not?
EVPN.
EVPN, yes. As in virtual private network.
Oh, yeah. So virtual private network with VXLAN. Anything else?
Which card will that be on, or will it be on all the cards?
We haven't defined that yet.
Probably Mount Evans, but let's see.
We have a timeline on the Mount Evans card, getting the hardware?
I'm supposed to reach out to Dan Daly and send him a reminder email
Yeah.
on that timeline. And then we do have budget technically to buy cards. So if we can't get cards from vendors, then that are participating, we'll purchase what we can. We'll probably do both.
Did we get a CN 106 from Marvell?
We're waiting for that as well. So right now we're in the phase of getting generic hardware, all of the generic networking hardware up and running. We don't yet have any specific DPU cards because we're waiting either for purchases to come in or for cards to be delivered by the activities from different vendors who are participating in the community.
One second. We have a Bluefield 2 already up and running, and we are bringing up the Pensando right now. We have 2 DPUs.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
So Mercha has the arrangement that each DPU goes in its own server.
Correct. Each DPU has its own server. And at this moment, we have an extra server with no DPU. It's a donation from ARM. So we have an ARM server.
Is that the only server that we have?
So only ARM servers that we have, but other than that, we have 4 servers in total.
So we have 2 that are waiting for cards.
One that waits for cards. The other one, we use it for test and so on, and has normal NICs that we can use to do like software traffic generator and run scripts and other things.
Okay, so when we get the CN 106 and we get the Mount Evans, we won't have enough servers, right?
Intel said they will send a qualified server with a Mount Evans.
Oh, that's right. It's gonna come with its own
Yes.
server. Yeah.
CN106 could go in the ARM server if Marvell wants to be in an ARM server. If not, we need to buy a x86 server. And we have plans and budget to buy a Bluefield 3 with a server.
Okay, I'll
Which
just,
ARM server is that?
yeah.
Is
Say
it
F5's experience was the CN 106 and the and an ARM server have issues, but maybe we can work through those.
Actually, all of the cards have issues with ARM servers.
Yeah.
Not unique to the CN 106. The
Yeah,
CN 106
there are ARM processors and issue with ARM servers. That's perfect.
Yeah.
well, ARM is addressing it. They're working on it. There's actually one of our proof of concept working group member is in process of trying to resolve that specifically. Most of the vendors, I don't think, had access to ARM servers when they built their cards. So almost everybody did testing in environments that were x86 explicitly and bring up. The other thing is that Marvell is working to resolve this, but with Hawkeye, but the Marvell card doesn't have an onboard BMC, as I recall. Tim,
The current one does not.
so we can't necessarily test it with the OPI APIs, but ultimately we will be able to once Hawkeye is resolved.
We can't do SZTP as currently defined.
Correct. We can still bring it up in x86 servers. And part of
We're getting the right reaction there because they are working on a revision of that card that will have a BMC. So.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we are trying to provide to OPI as well, not the old one. That's the delay.
Got it. So we're waiting on Hawkeye's timelines.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Because Joe's got them.
Well, yeah, I don't have actually too many.
Okay.
We're
really we're sort of in the storming phase.
Yeah.
We're building up a network at this point and trying to understand and learning basically how to partner with each other, which is good stuff.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I think this is fine for a first update.
Yeah.
We'll do another update in January.
Okay.
And see how this evolves. Can we upload this file? So I posted a link in chat for everyone. It's just our OPI project TSC files. Since this is all publicly recorded, we don't have to put it in any restricted access, and it's convenient to put it into the TSC files directory.
Yeah, no problem.
In our all-in-one website under the OPI project. Because it's a status update, because it's a TSC related file, just drop it there. I put the link in the meeting minutes, and also I put the link in the chat. So just drop it there, and then put a date on it. Just put a title and a date. DevPoc update, and just put the date stamp. Yes.
It doesn't look like. Let me see how to. Yeah, I'll figure out how to upload from there.
Yeah, all you have to do is basically upload the file. I mean, that directory, you should be able to just you do new upload. Here, I'll share.
Actually, I don't think I have the same permissions here that you do. So I'd like.
We can't put files in there. Okay, then in that case, send the file to me and I'll upload it.
Okay. I created something in Word, but I will forward it to send it to you. I don't want to.
Yeah, a Word document. Yeah, Word document is perfect.
All right.
Or you can make it a PDF. Don't care. If you prefer a PDF, so we have a frozen version, send it to me and I'll upload it. But
Yeah.
this is the location to put the statuses. I assumed everyone could get to it because everyone can get to the wiki, right? Where we keep the meeting minutes. So I assumed everyone can get to the files. Is that not true? Well, take a look. If you can't do it, just email it to me and I'll upload it, because clearly,
Yeah, so I don't see any files there currently, but
there are no files there currently. We've never used this before.
Okay.
In fact,
I'll send it to you.
Okay. All right. So let's do the next one. Mark, API. I'll stop sharing and I'll create a folder for the status stuff.
Great. Thank you.
I mean, I would use the Google Docs, but Google Docs is so chaotic in terms of managing a file hierarchy that I find it unpleasant to use. And most of the people are going to be creating Word or PowerPoint for these things anyway. So we should just do, I just want to put the statuses here to keep them in one place, keep them separate from all the chaotic content we have and, nice and ordered. We've got some statuses now. I'll put the non-board private slides every month there as well. The ones that are basically just summaries of the statuses, the roll-ups, so everyone can see the roll-ups, and so I can go back in history and see them easily. And that'll make at least one small aspect of what we're trying to keep organized a little simpler. All right, go ahead, Mark.
All right, here's the API work group status and plans. What's currently ongoing, storage API is in pretty good shape overall. We still have some refinements, updates that are ongoing. There's different little refactorings that are being done just to align with Google Protobuf stuff. And then, of course, one of the automation operations that we're doing across all the APIs will also have probably a few changes within storage and everything else.
Right, Mark, your microphone is breaking up.
Still breaking up, or is it good?
That's much better.
Okay. So in case you didn't hear me, the storage APIs, we're continuing refinements and updates. It's all pretty much in really good shape from the storage perspective. We do have some refactorings going on, but it's mostly cleaning up Google type formatting stuff. And then of course we'll have the automation aspect to do for storage. We also have the EVPN gateway and the CNI API that's going on. Intel Ericsson did a fork on the EVPN gateway. They're using that as a tie-in with their XPU CNI API that they're putting together. It's specific to their solution, so it will work with the CNI API only on a Mount Evans-based IPU for the current time frame. In the future, they're planning on adding other IPUs to that. So we've got a separate repo set up for that, and they're doing the initial PR that's out there right now to put in that initial implementation of what they think is a CNI API and integrating that with the EVPN gateway API that they contributed. The other big thing that's going on is from an automation standpoint, we're trying to move to where when you do the check-ins of the API protobufs, it's not going to essentially require the developers of the APIs to include the generated files. We're trying to move to an auto generation mechanism using a tool called Buff. And Buff provides you with the full linting generation, and it also does checking against the APIs for breakage. So it'll compare as part of their breakage operation to determine if something that you broke is in some dependency somewhere. Right now, we're still working through all of the various tooling for Buff. We've had to put together a special build tool simply to allow you to do the generation, because Buff doesn't provide one that works inside a Docker container, and we do most of the automation via Docker. So right now we're only going to do auto generation for Go and Python formats. Originally we were doing Go, Python, C++, and Java. Nobody has been using C++ or Java, so we're basically deprecating them right now. We can add them back in should that be something that is desired by the teams, but right now we're just deprecating the C++ and Java. And then we're working on right now the transition for the cloud and one other one. We've got two of them that are right now in code review for getting closed out. EVPN Gateway and Cloud, both in code review right now to do the transition. We've already completed common inventory security and those kind of common areas. We still have storage that's outstanding. So those are the ones we'll be working on in the next phase. Again, it's listed here We're gonna expand that support. We're doing all the supported areas with Docker, so we've got a lot of cleanup to do around that. I've already covered the EVP and gateway pretty much. The CI/CD has been disabled right now for the CNI API. Eventually, Intel and Ericsson are going to re-enable that. And then they're going to add additional XP platforms at a later date. The telco side, we have nothing right now in our telco view of the networking contribution, but NTT is working on something with 5G, 6G network use cases with Uplane and Cplane. So they are probably going to be contributing that sometime early next year. They're trying to get everything approved to release it and clean up their architecture in the API contribution aspect. For security, we've got plans to do some refactoring on the API to align it with the CRUD model. Right now, it's basically really aligning to Strong Swan. We want to make it more of a CRUD model generic, and then that would allow us to utilize potentially other IPsec implementations besides Strong Swan. For the networking, we've got from the networking summit, a TLS offload use case that we want to try to start taking forward, which will require some additional API extensions more than likely. And then of course, we also have Kubernetes data plane API that Intel has brought up as something to put in place based upon Calico. So these are the current ongoing plans where we're heading with the API group. So any questions?
Yeah, questions from anyone?
So the
Yeah.
networking TLS is for kind of NVMe over Fabrics use cases, or is that just TLS?
It's really a TLS offload use case. It came up during our networking summit. We were talking about different use cases that would make sense from customer perspectives. And one of the ones that seems to have a lot of traction that we're hearing from customers is TLS offload. So you can take the TLS stack and put it down into the DPU.
So this would be like reverse gateway kind of stuff.
That's
Load
one.
balancer.
Yep,
Yeah.
load balancer, reverse gateway. Yeah, anything that would take the TLS functionality off of the x86 or the compute cores and put it down into the
Okay. Just curious because KTLS hasn't necessarily taken off so far. So
No, it has not. But this is a different one where they actually just want to take the TLS off.
And
thanks.
everyone seems to want to redefine the authentication and encryption protocols for every new big project that comes along. So we'll see.
It makes life fun.
We'll see where the world goes. Stephen?
Yeah, so the OPI CNI, the repo itself, I'm curious if the intention is to expand this beyond the EVPN gateway use case, or is that the only use case that you're planned for this repo?
Well, okay, so a little history on this one. This was a request from Intel and Ericsson to create this separate repo because they wanted to fork the EVPN gateway and go off separately, do a bunch of work, and then contribute it back. We've raised multiple concerns about the direction of that in terms of, is it going to be a massive contribution or a, sequential contribution? But at this point, right now, it's really focused specifically toward their implementation and their solution. We've been bringing up various comments within the code reviews, at least from the Cambridge. I hope I answered your question, Stephen.
Well, I get that, and I knew some of that history. My concern really comes around to the naming, because in the community, I had multiple people say that there's an OPI CNI repo and thinking something very different than EVPN Gateway Sandbox.
Yeah, I'm not happy with the naming, but that was the one that ended up being in there, and I think over time it will probably be replaced. Well,
Yeah,
back
and-
our way through that.
It's actually one of the things we're going to review next week is the operational execution plans for that project. That's
Yeah.
going to be on the agenda for next week to have a more detailed review of that. So
Yeah, I requested, there's a bunch of questions around that out in one of the Slack channels that we put forward. We got answers back, but again, we're still concerned about how the direction is.
Yeah, maybe Mark, it would be good to write down, sort of at the one slide level, the details on that one, or in a little Word document. Write down the current setup, the discussion that needs to be had, and what we need to decide. And again, we're going to have a review from Intel and Ericsson, and I'm going to have them focus on how does this work actually get done, right? It's almost a process discussion rather than a, hey, is EVPN a good idea for creating multi-tenant gateway connections for a telco use case. I mean, I think the technical idea is fine. The question is, in OPI, how do we want this to work? That's the big open question, and that's what I'm going to focus them on for next week.
Yeah, I can put together the notes that we've already got and a series of questions that we've already asked and responses.
Okay, and reach out to
my
Mike.
Current setup.
Yeah,
Sorry,
reach out
to who?
Yeah, reach out to Mike Lynch so that it sort of dovetails and matches into what he's saying, so that we can get the kind of the maintainer view, API maintainer view, as well as the developer user view, all merged into something we can all agree on. Yeah, that's how we're going to work, and that actually is fine. It has value, so we can get it moving forward, right? And everything will be a compromise for this, in my opinion. But we'll, again, we got to have the actual discussion.
Yeah, and again, I agree with what Stephen's saying. We've got to go back to running on the naming of this repo, because calling it OPIs or calling it CNI API it's more focused than just a generic CNI.
Yeah, and we could propose a name change, things like that as well, if that would help the overall clarity. I mean, sometimes names don't matter and sometimes they do. And from what you guys are saying, this may be a spot where the name actually does matter to not mislead people. Okay. Good. Again, see if you can upload, Mark. If you can't, just email it to me and I'll upload it.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. All right.
Maybe it's the name that's confusing me, because I see that CNI API, and then in the Kubernetes data plane, I see Calico data plane API, which sounds like a CNI as well.
Yep.
Are these just different CNIs that we're working on in different places, Mark?
This is it's an interesting thing, because Intel and Ericsson were the ones who wanted this breakout for this OPI CNI API. And then separately, Intel is asking, should we create a Kubernetes data plane API, which is again is another CNI basically, and basically run Calico. So it's almost a dichotomy internal.
I mean, it's okay to have multiple CNIs as long as we're clear what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think in general they should be combined into one CNI effort as much as possible, and then eventually you might want to break it out, because you're going to support Calico in one case and a different mechanism in another case.
And Ericsson is not using Calico; they're using something else.
I don't think they're using Calico.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
unclear what they're using right now because it's kind
Well,
of,
Well, my understanding is that this is a secondary, network, so it's its own thing that runs under Multus.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just for this very specific use case.
Right. So we'll do that detailed discussion on that particular sub-project next week. That'll be one of our that'll probably be the first and main agenda item for next.
Yeah, I guess my input, Joe, is that we try to draw the distinction on how that work is different than what's going on in this other Kubernetes work, that we sort of tease out the differences in those two efforts.
Yeah, that's excellent stuff to bring up, and you could even see the discussion in the EVPN Slack channel. So there's an EVPN Slack channel, and you could see the discussion in that channel. I believe everyone should be able to see it. Is that correct, Mark?
Yep.
Yeah. So very good points. Put the questions in that EVPN Slack channel. And we can discuss it in detail next time. All right. I see Alad joined, so why don't we do life cycle next, Alad? Go ahead and share. And
you mean use case?
I mean use case. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a cross-wired brain for you. That happens.
I'm on my phone. Is there any chance you can present what I sent you?
Yeah, you sent it to me in email, I believe, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I should be able to. Just give me a second.
If not, I'll go to my computer and try and do it.
Well, in my Outlook is. Okay, Outlook's up. So let me find. Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay, I can share.
Thank you very much, Joe.
And then I have the thing to upload, so. It's taking
No worries. So you'll have to forgive the plainness of the visual here, but
I don't need. I need words, not fancy graphics. This isn't a product pitch. This is a status update.
okay.
Could have been a Word document.
Yeah, it looks like a Word document. It was written very plainly. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but it's not. Oh man. Okay, so what happened is IT got clever with me, and they rebooted my machine, and their reboot recovery is completely different than it's been before, and it's opening about 40 PowerPoints.
Let me try and
So if you're
do
there,
it from
there.
yeah, I'm going to my computer.
Yeah, that would be better.
Hold on, I'm switching.
We've all had that experience, Joe. We feel your pain.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it happened to me twice this week. Once, at least, I was able to schedule it because I got the pop-up. This one, they stealthily did overnight. So.
It always changes too. Because somebody has a new fancy idea about the way it should go.
Oh, yeah. All our ITs are run by the same people.
So hopefully you can see my screen now.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so very simply, so we had a chance to discuss OPI with 5 new potential deployment partners, and you'll see some of the names below. Multiple discussions at forums, at shows and shows such as OCP, where I was lucky enough to join both the ARM guys and F5 guys at the booth, and we had plenty of good discussions, including with people like Bell Canada and Nokia and others. Same with Fuse. Fuse is if you guys do not know Fuse is the TIP conference, and I was lucky enough to be invited there as NVIDIA, but I took the chance to discuss OPI on many forums, and there seemed to be good traction there. A few of the European telcos got interested, so we're trying to set up a call with European telcos in January. Deutsche Telekom is going to lead that. We're hoping to get Deutsche, Orange, and Telefonica, all of which we've had discussions about this. Exploring joint work with the ION project. I actually hosted the ION project just last week in headquarters, as well as Silva and TIP. So TIP, I just mentioned, Telecom Infra project. Silva is more unique because it's not just telco, and it's a Linux open project. If you guys do not know Silva, look them up, Silva Linux. It's basically an open OS for RAN for the telco side, but also for overall cloud management on the enterprise side. And they're doing a lot of interesting stuff. They are not focused on DPU, so there is on IPU. So there is a good chance of a collaboration between the two sides. I'm trying to reach out to a few of the members, and I've already spoken to Canonical. I'm going to speak to SUSE, Rancher, as well, to see if we can collaborate on specific use cases. ION, as Mark hinted at, Entity ION are going to contribute distributed UPF code to us. So if you remember, we asked Ericsson Intel to contribute that, and the answer was they're forking it and doing their own thing. So Entity ION is kind enough to offer us their distributed UPF code, as well as more contribution around security. And as Mark said correctly, they're now cleaning up the IP and getting approval from their management to send us the code. Should be in early January. And I've used the meetings that we've had with them to push Entity to join as well. Given that Fujitsu, NVIDIA, and Red Hat, the other partners that ON are already in, it should be a non-brainer for them. But of course, Entity is a big beast, and it's also divided into about 50 different companies. So what we're trying to get their attention, starting with Entity Labs, which are the ION project, and going forward into Entity Docomo, which is the telco side. Other than telco, we've had a few discussions with enterprise, but none of them really showed promise as using DPUs, IPUs. And the ones that are using them are already so far advanced that they're doing their own thing. So I think our sweet spot that I'm seeing is with telco, although it's painful, it is a sweet spot. They're moving slow, but they are moving. To some extent, tier 2 clouds, where they don't have their own teams, they will rely on us, and maybe some financial companies, but I have yet to find a good candidate for use case group in the financial space. So if anybody has an idea, I welcome it. But this is the update from the use case group, and any questions?
Anyone at all?
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if this is something that we should be discussing in our own working groups, or if this is something we should be talking about at the TSC. But how do we coordinate proof of concepts and stuff like use case demonstrations at conferences? Is this something that we would talk about in the outreach committee or here? Because it seems like there's efforts to coordinate in this space.
So I would say to your question, and it's a good question, that when we started discussion with a deployment partner, we mentioned all the POCs that we can offer, and then we hope that one of the POCs will hit home. Our ultimate goal, obviously, is to not only have somebody join us, but also somebody to deploy it at the end of the day. So if I try to draw a line between what a usual company structure would be and where we are. I see outreach as the marketing and use case as the actual sales or even pre-sale to some extent, and then POC as the post-sale. So I invite them in. You guys do the outreach, get our name out there. And I'm a part of those discussions usually, as you see some of the activities we've shared as well. We get somebody in here interested, talking to us. We show them the POCs, they pick one. We send them to the POC group to get it set up or to see it in our lab.
Got it. Well, I think there's also a different space for POC as well. I think once we're building things that other companies could see, we probably need to be showing those things in conferences.
Oh yeah, there's definitely an outreach to POC lane that doesn't involve the use case group.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have an opinion on that?
Shoot. Yeah, what we ought to do is do the kind of review approval here. Find out, basically list out what we're doing and go, yeah, that makes sense, or that way we can ask any questions at the TSC level, and make sure that A, we know what's going on, and B, there's no other considerations or gotchas that anyone can think of. The what should we do, put it together, should just come from POC and use case group coordinating directly. Go to the use case meeting and say, hey, I need the following, and if you have something that would be valuable, reach out to POC Dev so that you can get the coordination.
Elad, once the POC dev group starts getting moving, we're still in sort of the build out of a lab phase. You and I should kind of talk about making sure that we're attending each other's meetings back and forth, or having representatives, just to make sure that conversation continues to happen.
So I have one of the greatest representatives from F5 in my meetings usually, Tim.
Paul.
And Tim, because Paul is too busy and they have to split the load somehow. And I try my best to attend the outreach.
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
This is the use case, the POC Dev use case, but maybe we can do it in the context of the it's the POC Dev meeting. Maybe we can do it in the context of the use case group.
Yeah, just to have a sense of what we're doing. I mean, obviously, this is another place to look at that. Things happen live sometimes. So,
Lod, there was a fair bit of additional material that you said as opposed to typed. Can you just type in notes on this and then send it to me again so I can upload it?
Sure. You mean mostly adding some more names?
Well, more names, and then you had a couple of additional detailed plans about what the use case group is going to request of the rest of OPI, basically.
Okay. I'll try and do my best.
Yeah. Again, you said it all. Just type out a little bit more, and then just send it to me.
Okay.
And this form is fine. I don't.
Okay.
Again, just type a few more words.
Okay.
Fill in, some of the stuff you talk to, and then otherwise this is good. Update. Okay. Lee.
Okay.
All right. So, Lee.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll have to just send it to me, Lee. Apparently, you guys can't get to that folder, so which is fine.
Okay.
Mostly I'll figure out where else to put it, or how to get permissions set differently, or use a different folder, and maybe I'll make it read only from everyone else, and I'll do the updates. But I'll figure that out with Sridhar.
Okay. Let me share. All right. Hopefully that's coming through. Let me try and get into presentation mode.
Yeah, it's good. Either this mode is fine, actually.
Okay, can you see it still?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Okay. So sorry, coming into this cold, so just trying to give a brief update. And I'm not sure what the last status update was. So recent things are we have contributions from both Dell and NVIDIA of existing XPU to BMC boot coordination. Specifically, we both contributed our NCSI OEM commands set that we've been using, and the idea is that we would start. That's a good starting point to push into PLDM, which has a better chance of getting wide industry adoption, right? Well, I mean, what we have has adoption, but to get it into a standard that everybody agrees on, the best place to do that is in the PLDM set state specs. So we've already been working with the DMTF to get that going, and that's just to standardize the boot coordination between the XPU and the server, and then have a graceful shutdown between the server and the XPU. And then currently we're working on consolidating or coming up with the minimal set for the northbound Redfish interface for firmware update, boot control, and reset, and kind of identifying some gaps. I mean, some of the hard parts are going to be probably along the lines of just because you have UEFI boot control, the names for something like what is the out-of-band management port and things like that won't be the same from vendor to vendor. So, if you're trying to accomplish the actual use case of boot from network, how do you really figure out what those interfaces are and actually boot that way and things like that? So, any questions? Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I was waiting
All right.
for people to see if they had questions.
So one question on the minimal set, would it also have something like UEFI, HTTP boot, or
Yeah, that would be
media
boot control.
attachment?
Yeah,
Okay.
boot control probably, a lot of things can be in boot control, probably have enrolling of UEFI secure boot, right? At least checking the configuration, you'd like to be able to update it, unless we're just going to always rely that people are using the Microsoft cert and a shim associated with that, right?
Okay. Yeah, we had an experience with well, where they wanted media attachment as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Like
going to be a little,
network media attachment.
yeah. So I think that may be a little hard. Okay, all right. So UEFI by itself, I'm trying to just talk about what's public knowledge and what's, general, right? Okay. UEFI has the ability to, if you point it to an ISO out on the network, right, it can load that into a RAM disk and boot from it. Okay. So you can do that. Creating something like virtual media that's present in BMCs like iDRAC and ILO, that relied on some platform, that relied on some inter-platform interworking that you can't rely on that being there between a server and an XPU, or internally between the XPU and the ARM cores. You can't necessarily, they didn't build it like a standard server. Does that make any sense? Like the internalness of between what constitutes the management part of an XPU and what and how what it can do to those ARM cores is not necessarily standard, or it isn't standard.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answered your question or relieves your concern or anything like that.
I think we are fine. It's a RHEL thing, so anybody from RHEL, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine if you can basically once you unlock the ability to configure or to set a network boot, right? And people liked virtual media because they didn't like Pixie because it's sort of insecure. But if you're booting UEFI HTTP boot, that is
Yeah.
secure, right? So once you get that, then you can boot to a network image, and then you can create whatever kind of kickstart image you want, right? And then do all kinds of things, right? So it kind of unlocks the world once you get to that point.
Any other questions?
All
All right. Yep. No, it's good. All right. I don't think we only have 3 minutes, or rather, we should be done since we should always end a couple minutes early. So thank you everyone for your input. And next week we'll list out all of the things we need to review, starting with the Intel Ericsson EVPN operational approach. All right. Have a great day.